Next, we get some analysis on the hospital attack and the stability in the Middle East. We're joined live by Yissachar, who has served as an IDF intel analyst and who is currently head of research at the Israel Security and Defense Forum. Thank you for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
So Israel and Hamas are trading blame over the hospital attack, but evidence has been produced that shows that it was the fault of the Islamic Jihad, which works with Hamas. Yet people are still protesting against Israel. How will those protests shape public sentiment toward Israel?
Yeah, it's they say lies have feet, so we are seeing that in full display right now. It's even a bit amusing to see so many people outraged at actually by Hamas propaganda. We all got to be more careful, especially in a time of war. We know how to be careful when it comes to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Well, alleged false flag operations were they excused to invade, and we had multiple, the internet was flowing with Russian misinformation. And people who profess to combat misinformation and fake news sometimes forget to do that when it comes to Israel. Even when you open your everyday media outlet.com, still we need to be careful when it comes to Hamas propaganda. Why would Israel bombard a hospital? Now we know that actually it was a misfired PIJ rocket, Islamic Jihad rocket, much like, by the way, 450 different rockets who were misfired and landed inside Gaza, on the heads of the Gazans since the beginning of this war. It's reminiscent of previous operations in Gaza where misfired rockets killed civilians. I remember in August 2022, where a misfired PIJ rocket landed on top of 6 Palestinian children who were really, the heart goes out to them. And they accused Israel. There was even an MK in Israel who tweeted out his outrage and had to delete his tweet because Israel was proven to be right. So we all got to be more careful here. Even when it comes to Israel, we got to be more careful from misinformation.
Yeah, and you mentioned false flag operations. So is this most likely just disregard for human life and a misfire, or have there actually been a precedent for actually intentionally doing this from the terrorists?
For sure, and let's not lose sight of who's the real victim here, right? This all started when Hamas invaded Israel and murdered, really in the most heinous way, 1,300 civilians and abducted 200. I spend my days, my WhatsApp is booming from messages from people who are telling me their story about this IDF soldiers who saw, I don't want to get into too much graphics here, but babies and children and the elderly, young men and women, inside their own homes, burned alive, went into party and found their death. So let's not lose sight of who's the real terrorist here. Israel has been conducting this war in Gaza as a response to the most murderous attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And even then, it is prudent and it's taking measures to avoid civilian casualties while Hamas and PIJ are hiding behind civilians. This is not just a slogan. This is actually the big, as security analysts, we are all talking about non-state actors hiding behind civilians and using all of these malicious tactics who are against international law, by the way, much like they're taking hostages are against international law. So let's not lose sight of who's the real victim and who's the real perpetrator here. We all got to be much more careful when it comes to fake news.
Yeah, and that Hamas is using human shields, as they say. Jordan's foreign minister says that the war between Israel and Hamas is pushing the region to the brink. So what can you say about the stability of the region right now, given that rage is spreading?
Well, I think the Jordanian king is sitting on top of a mountain of explosive barrels. We know that over 80% of his population are Palestinian, and he has to say these things. And I somewhat understand it, but there comes a time where these things can no longer happen. I would expect the Jordanian king, who is really in such unequivocal, in no uncertain terms, denounced a PIJ misfired rocket that landed in a hospital parking lot and injured almost no one, and took the Hamas PR really golden gift that they got here now, and they very wisely knew how to leverage into Israel blasting a hospital, killing hundreds. We absolutely have no knowledge of that. We actually know the opposite. According to IDF evidence, all the infrared videos that were published, all these satellite images, not only President Biden said it wasn't Israel, even Al Jazeera mistakenly sided with Israel when their live coverage showed the misfired rocket landing on a hospital parking lot. But the Jordanian king, I would expect him to denounce the butchery of 1,300 Israelis before he denounces a misfired rocket landing in a parking lot. And, we are in a regional moment where everybody has to take sides. And I would advise Jordan and Egypt to side with Israel and the United States in this war against Iran and against Hamas. They got to pick sides now. They can't just sit on the sidelines like they have all these years. President Biden is here on a visit. Use it, leverage it. Let President Biden come to Jordan and use this opportunity for peace in the Middle East.
Yes, and that meeting in Jordan with President Biden has been postponed or canceled due to the, obviously, attack on the hospital. So, Or Yissachar, Research Head and Director of Content at Israel Security and Defense Forum, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very interesting insights. And